Before I answer the question, I just want to say I I disagree with the question. Everything it's there's so many, like, we know so many stories of people who have made it big because they didn't, live a life that others wanted for them, and it just shows that it's possible. And so um I completely disagree with it, because we can, any one of us can, we can stray away from the norm. And the you know through this whole video, I'm gonna talk about on the things that people do to become successful, that normal people or common people don't do all the time, that doesn't create success. So why do we live a life that others want for us? Well, it kind of starts to just who we are, like the core of who we are as people and what makes us so advanced. You know, just as a species, we have human emotion. And because of human emotion, our emotion tends to, it gets conflicted with other people's emotions. And whether that be over like doing whatever, uh, you know, doing what makes them feel good, or not wanting them to, you know, do anything that would make them unhappy. We tend to kind of settle for less, or just do what, not necessarily what makes us happy, but what makes others happy. And the reason why, we live a life for others is because it's either too difficult for us to be independent and to stand up for ourselves, or just because we want to fit in and we want to make everyone around us happy. And because of these emotions that we feel, it really comes down to like four main points. Um, the first one being is that we need to we need to be strong enough to make our own decisions. We can't have anyone else rule over our lives, and so that's the first step. And the second thing is we can't let our backgrounds, like our parents, like our relatives, like our backgrounds, we can't necessarily let that sway us entirely into making our big life decisions. The third thing would be, uh, we can't have we can't really have excuses, like limitations. So like we can't say like, oh, I couldn't do this because I didn't have this, or you know things like that. And the fourth reason would be is people need to learn to kind of just face reality. They need to kind of like, grow up, and even though they may have like those dreams, they need to just kind of, accept that, hey, I'm not there yet, but I'm gonna work towards it. I'm gonna face the day. I'm gonna do the hard stuff, and I'm going to, by doing all like the really lame hard work that I have to do now, that's gonna make me one step closer to getting to my dreams. So first, and when people make their own decisions in life, it's best to have the mentality as life, kind of like a blank slate. It's up to the person to determine how it starts and how it finishes, not anyone else. So, and that same view of like a blank slate, it's really similar to the song intro. Um, it's it's only up to the listener on what the song is trying to like say, and like how it starts. Like, there's no right or wrong way to view it. It all depends on the individual. It's all just, it's not skewed from anyone else. Like, there's no words in the song to like kind of skew your perspective on how you interpret the song. It's all up to just, the listener, and how he or she feels about the song. So, recapping on the second reason, which is having people's decisions be skewed by their family backgrounds, or their past. Um, Usually like an ideal is like, oh, everyone in the family is a doctor, and it's like, oh, okay, I should be a doctor, just because everyone else in my family was as well. So I relate that mentality basically to Stand By Me, the family of Chris Chambers and Teddy. Um, those two boys, they had, very similar lifestyles or backgrounds. They both came from like families of like criminals and you know people who just didn't follow the law. And Chris, he had a strong will. He viewed his life kind of like you know as his own way. He didn't let his past or his family kind of determine on what he could amount to be. And he followed his dreams. He just wanted to be successful, and that's exactly what he did. He ended up being a lawyer, and even though his life came to an end shortly after achieving his goal, he achieved it. And Teddy, he basically kind of decided he already kind of, just because of what his parent, like because of his dad, he was just like, oh, okay, my dad's older, and he's just gonna be, that's what I'm gonna be in the future. That's how he saw his dad. He just saw, that's myself in the future. So he didn't necessarily he just kind of amounted that. He settled for what he could be, just to follow those footsteps, because it's easier. And Chris, even though it was harder, he did he did the unthinkable. No one thought he was going to be anything, and he ended up becoming something, and that's amazing in itself. So to recap on our third reason, which was not letting your circumstances or your situation kind of determine your future. Let's say there's a lot of people who were just kind of dealt a bad hand, meaning like, yeah, I was born into a homeless family, or I was born in jail, or there are those people who have those lives, and they couldn't do anything about it. It's really similar to A Boy Named Sue by Johnny Cash. I mean, with a name like that, like, man, the poor kid, he's like probably just, you'd think the guy would be a wimp. He's he's got a girl's name. I mean, you think he'd just gonna grow up being like a little sissy or like a little wuss and just get teased around just because he's got a sucky name. But despite his challenges with that, he ended up growing to be a tough guy. And even though that was the dad's intentions in the first place, why he gave him a girly name, he just wanted him to be tough. He didn't know that because his dad left him when he was young. So, I mean, the boy didn't know those intentions. He didn't know the dad's intentions till after he saw his dad, like way later. And he just, despite being given a bad hand or just having an unfortunate name, he learned to deal with it, and he learned to get through the hard stuff, and that led him to his success. That led him to his toughness. The last reason on why people live a life for others, which was facing reality, in order to achieve their dreams. The most perfect example was how Casey Neistat in Millionaire YouTube Sellout, in that video, he explains this concept beautifully. He used the example of Kanye West and how he started out as a really small local rapper or performer, and he had to basically get money from his parents or his mom so that he could actually do that. And he was basically this wannabe rapper. It's yeah, he was that, but look where he is now. He's got tons of fans, and he's got tons and tons of money. And although he kind of looked like a total loser in the beginning, he faced reality. He did the hard, lame work that he had to do in the beginning in order to get on top. He had to balance out reality and his dreams, and he he kept having to deal with reality in order to get closer with his dreams, and so that they could be one and the same. Another person who also did this was Susan Bargman from. She was from the podcast, the Freakonomics podcast, on how to become great at just about anything. Uh, with her case, she was already kind of in a set place. She was already a psychologist. She already had kids. Like, she already had a family, and but she just wanted to just start becoming a singer, kind of not out of nowhere, but she wanted to actually fulfill the dream she had as a when she was in her youth. And so she had to deal with learning how to actually sing. For those of you who listen to the podcast, it sounded, her singing was awful. It sucked. Uh, she could not hold a note. Uh, but she, she got through practicing with her vocalist, and like, also dealing with kids, and taking care of them because they weren't old, they were still young, and then also like organizing, like working around her work schedule and like with patients and whatnot. That's a lot. So through dealing with all of that, she eventually got a number one radio hit in Denmark, and became kind of a pop star in Denmark, and I mean, that's that's success in itself. And to wrap it up, there really isn't. We really don't have a good reason to live a life that others want for us, and leaving us unhappy, because there's so many ways to avoid it. If we just follow those, like, or actually, just from all my examples and all the people who presented before me, they have so those are all great examples of why our life shouldn't be controlled, and why we shouldn't, just do what others want. If we just make our own decisions, we don't let our backgrounds determine where we can get in the future. If we deal with our bad circumstances and our unfortunate things that we were given, that we were dealt, and then we balance out, we face reality in order to achieve our dreams. Just anything is possible. Success is in our grasp, and anything can be done as long as we just follow those 4 steps.